Okay, so today we have 3 tasks, and then first one we'll finish the rest of chapter 22, and then we'll go through the questions of chapter 22 on your workbook, and then finally we will briefly introduce the notes for sensible consumption, and which is also included in your final examination. So let's start with chapter 22. So we have come to the very last 2 parts. The first part is classification of public expenditure. We already go through what different types of policy area group that our government will spend money on, and then the next part, this is just a review of the proportion of different policy area, and then the second classification will be by the nature of expenditure. So the first one is recurrent expenditure. So it refers to regular expenditure of the government. So let's say even if the government do not rule out any new policy, like any new infrastructure, but they still, to maintain the government to operate, like to maintain their daily operation, there's still some expenses to support the daily operation of the government. So examples will be wages for civil servant, and then for this MPF contributions, the 強積金, it is like a contribution by an employer to his employee for their retirement fund. So it is actually for all employers in Hong Kong. They have to pay that contribution for their employees. And since the government is one of the biggest employer in Hong Kong, so then obviously the government have to bear that expense as well. 咁如果用廣東話解下呢，咁呢嚿嘢即係呢個就叫強積金啦。咁強積金嘅意思呢，就係僱主啦，要對佢嘅僱員呢幫佢嘅僱員供一個嘅基金啦。咁呢嗰個基金呢，就要供，即係嗰個僱員呢係要60歲退休嘅時候先可以拎得翻出嚟嘅。咁一般嚟講呢，會係嗰個僱員嘅人工嘅5% 啦。咁呢個就係僱主嘅供款，咁僱員都要供翻5% 嘅，咁嗰個就叫強積金啦。咁當然係up to 一個 ceiling 嘅，即係唔係所有人都係交緊5%，不過最低係最少，即係啦，即係最少好似係1000幾至2000蚊左右嘅一個月，係啦咁樣。咁強積金就係每一個僱主要幫佢僱員供嘅一個基金咁樣啦。咁所以就係政府都要幫佢嘅即係公務員去供呢一個嘅強積金嘅。So this part will be recurrent expenditure, and then the second will be capital expenditure. So capital expenditure is not like supporting their daily operation. It is expenditure on capital works. So what does it mean by capital works? Will be the greatest example will be infrastructure. For any kind of infrastructure, then it will be classified as capital in economics, and then for infrastructure, you can see examples here will be roads, airports, airports, bridges, and then those will be those basic infrastructure, basic facilities to be used in the community. So those will be counted in capital expenditure. Then for this part, you need to know the example. I guess like you need to know for the expenditure on infrastructure will be classified as capital expenditure, while wages will classify as recurrent expenditure. Then moving on, so the next part is the size of public sector. So you can see that it is measured by the ratio of public expenditure to GDP. So this is to measure the size of the public sector. So when your public expenditure increase, then this size of public sector will properly increase, but we also have to pay attention to the percentage increase in GDP to make the final conclusion. So this ratio what does it mean? It means when when this ratio goes up, it means that the government is controlling more resources in the society. So normally in Hong Kong, it's around 20% in Hong Kong, and you may need to you may see some questions like this is the percentage. Let's say it is the growth rate, and then you will see the growth rate. So here, this is public expenditure. Maybe like this. Yeah, public expenditure. The curve is like this, and then for the GDP, it's the trend. The trend is this is year. The trend is like the growth rate is going up, and then you will be asked whether or not in this period the size of public sector has increased or not. So the first common iteration or common mistakes you may think that okay, public expenditure keep decreasing while GDP keep increasing. So obviously the size of public sector will drop in this period, but you still have to pay attention that here it is already the growth rate. So for every year, you can see the percentage, the growth rate of public expenditure and GDP, they are both positive, but just that for every year, the growth rate of public expenditure is still higher than GDP. So when you come back to this formula, so both increase, but for every year, the public expenditure increase in a higher growth rates than the GDP. So in fact, for that period, the size of public sector has been increasing instead of decrease. So if the growth rate is given, then what you need to pay attention will be which curve is higher, is placed on top, instead of the growth, the curve is increasing or decreasing. So even if, like, let's say it is like this is the public expenditure, while this one is GDP. So as long as it is growth rates in the y-axis, then you should already know. So for the growth rates of public expenditure has been higher than the GDP for this entire period. So the size of public sector keep increasing in this period. Okay, and then so this is what we have been through, studying about the ratio of public expenditure to GDP equals to the size of public sector, and the size of public sector in Hong Kong is like around 20%. So this is background information. And then next part will goes to when the government change its expenditure, how would it affect our society or our economy? So first of all, when the government increase expenditure on social welfare, let's say you will need to know, let's say CSSA, it is the Comprehensive Social Security Assistance, 綜援, and then or you need to remember let's say old age living allowance, 生果金. Those are actually example of social welfare given to the poor, and we also normally regard the elderly as the poor as well, because generally they do not have any income as they already retired. So then if when the government increase expenditure on social welfare, then and also obviously unemployment benefit, then the gap between the rich and the poor will be widened, and then it will be narrowed, and then the income inequality will be reduced. So this is one impact on the society when the government spend more money on social welfare. And then second, on employment. So if you increase in public expenditure, I believe you have learned it before in LNS, when the government spend more money on infrastructure, then we will create more job opportunities and lower the unemployment rate. And then when people get a job, then the society will be more stable, as the people do not have to commit crime. As they have a proper job, they will have a more stable income. And then in terms of productivity, so if they spend money on education and training in economics, we always believe that education and training can raise productivity, so and also improve the quality of labor. So this is you may argue, but this is what we assume. Okay, like in economics, education and training almost put an equal sign on increasing the productivity of labor. And then this one is quite straightforward, so I would just rather show the answers here, like if yeah. So next part will be budget, right? Okay, so a budget, this part is actually quite straightforward. First of all, we have fiscal year is different from calendar year. We know calendar year start from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. And then for fiscal year, it will start with 1st of April to the 31st of March of the next calendar year. And then the government will plan their budget every fiscal year as a term, as a period. And then we have different types of budgets. So when we have a surplus budget, obviously it means that your revenue is greater than your expenditure. And then it is a budget, so it's just a planned figure only. So it's just an estimation, so it is not the actual one. So this is a very key point. When it ends with budget, so you know that okay, this is just a plan. And then for deficit budget, on the other side, on another way around, will be your expenditure is more than your revenue. You spend more than you spend more than the revenue, the income that you can earn. This is also as it end with budget, so it just also planned only. And then for balanced budget will be the expenditure equals to its revenue. So this is quite straightforward. And so far we still talking about the planned one only. This is not the actual one. So the next section will be the actual one. So pay attention. So if it's surplus, then I believe that surplus means that we have some remaining amount, right? So surplus normally it's quite intuitive that you know it is your revenue greater than your expenditure. But this is budget surplus. So when budget surplus, this term, it means that it is actual. It is the actual figure. So you have to be very careful when you see budget surplus or surplus budget. If it is surplus budget, so this one you just planned. If it is budget surplus, this is just actually you have a surplus, actual figure. Okay, so then for this budget surplus, it also has another name called fiscal surplus. So there's a lot of terms here. Anyway, when you see it ends with surplus or ends with deficit, then it is an actual number. But if it ends with budget, then it's just planned. Okay, so same idea here. So when you see deficit, you know that deficit is your expenditure greater than your revenue, and it ends with deficit. So this is an actual deficit that you are facing. This is not just a planned figure. So so here it just once again reminds you that a surplus budget is different from a budget surplus. This one ends with surplus, this is actual. This one ends with a budget, so this is just planned. And then the next one is that when we have so we have a plan, and then we now after that year we got an actual figure, and then if you have a budget surplus, so this is just an actual figure, then actually you have some money left. Okay, your revenue is greater than your expenditure this year, then your fiscal reserve will increase. So what does it mean by fiscal reserve? It means the money the government have, yeah. 即係儲備係即係佢有究竟有幾多錢咁樣。So if that year they have a budget surplus of 1 million, then the fiscal reserve will increase by 1 million. So then on the other way around, if that year you had a deficit, actual deficit, then you will cause your fiscal reserve to drop. So obviously, if it is just a planned figure, let's say it is surplus budget, as it's just a planned figure, it won't actually affect your fiscal reserve. So if the information given to you is that the fiscal reserve has increased that year, what we can be 100% sure is that year we have a budget surplus, or we call fiscal surplus. But we cannot be sure that year when we are planning, we are actually having a surplus budget or a deficit budget. OK， 即係如果嗰年咧，你嗰個 fiscal reserve 係升咗，咁即係你肯定嘅就係你嗰年肯定係有錢賺㗎啦 ，actual 有個 surplus 啦，咁即係叫做係budget surplus 或者叫 fiscal surplus。咁但係咧係不能反映你 plan 嘅時候咧，你究竟 plan 嘅係 plan 有一個 fiscal 有一個plan 嘅時候係有一個 surplus 定係有一個 deficit， 係啦咁樣樣。咁所以你要好清楚。呢幾樣嘢，即係唔同嘅 information 俾到啲咩 conclusion 俾你係。如果佢俾嗰個係 fiscal reserve 嘅 changes 俾你咧，你只能 conclude on actual 嘅 figure 係有 surplus 定係有 deficit， 但係你係 conclude 唔到我哋 plan 嘅時候 plan 嗰一年係有 surplus 定係有 deficit 嘅。And then this is just a brief idea giving you an idea that our plan.Our estimation is not always equal to our actual number. So let's say in this year, originally we planned we have a deficit, but it turns out we have a surplus. So yeah, that's why by knowing the actually we have a surplus that year, we have a budget surplus that year, we cannot conclude you must have a surplus budget that year. Yeah. So this is pretty much the rest of your fiscal policy. Yeah, this is just the net. Then moving on, we will move on to your workbook. Okay, so for your workbook, I remember that your first questions will be related to the tax rates. Yes, I have to. Yes, here. Okay, let me open it. Okay, for chapter 22, here you have an original fiscal profits tax and then proposed new profits tax, and then pay attention to its y-axis is actually a tax payment. So it asks you whether or not it is a progressive tax. So if you pay attention in the lesson, you will know that if there's tax payment, we have to check its slope. Then you will know that the tax rate is actually increasing as your income increase. Your tax rate is actually decreasing as your income increase. So it is actually a regressive tax. So the answer will be no. Then for you to explain, you need to use the formula of tax rate. So here it was said that what does it mean by formula of tax rate? The proportion of your income versus your tax payment. A proportion of income as tax payment is actually decreasing. The proportion is actually decreasing. Proportion is your percentage, or we can see that as a tax rate. So you know that the slope is actually decreasing means that the rate is decreasing, the proportion is decreasing, then it's actually a regressive tax instead of progressive tax. So when your income increases, your proportion of income as tax payment is actually decreasing, so it's actually a regressive tax. So you will need to be able to explain a certain tax. It is a progressive, proportional, or regressive using the formula of the tax rates. So and then the next questions, when you change the tax system, how will it affect our investment incentive? Then obviously you can see it's actually increasing in tax payment when you earn the same income. So you can also see it as increase in tax rates. Okay, so increase in profit tax rates. Then for increasing tax rate, how will it profit tax rate, how will it affect investment incentive? It will decrease the investment incentive, because it will when you earn money you have to pay more tax. When you earn the same amount of profits, you have to pay more profits tax. So here you will make your return from investment drop, and then it will make your investment incentive drop. And the next part will be government tax revenue. This one you need to pay special attention, as now we have increase in tax rate, and the first answer that come to your mind may be your tax revenue will increase. But when you increase in tax rates, it's actually have two different two effects. First of all is that increase the profit tax rate, it will cause your tax revenue to increase. But you may overlook that, because in BI we will have a drop in investment incentive. You will make the company you may have less company set up, and also they may invest less in their company and making their profit drop. So that's why lower investment incentive leading to lower investment, or even they just stop investing, they have less firm, then it will also make your tax revenue to drop. Then combine these two effects together, then your change in tax revenue will be uncertain. And the conclusion I want to draw here is that when the government change the tax rate, let's say increase in tax rate or decrease in tax rate, the change in the tax revenue will always be uncertain, because when it increase in tax, we will have a disincentive effect. When it decrease in tax, it will have an increase in incentive. So the final change in tax revenue will be uncertain. So, and then for the next question, what is budget? It's just it's just a definition part. And then for boy, this expansionary fiscal policies is not within your syllabus, so you can just ignore it right now. So that's all for the workbook, and then the next section will go to sensible consumption. So sensible consumption, this part is actually for your own, is actually serve as additional notes, but it's still included in your syllabus. And it will be tested. If you go through those past paper, you will see some fill in the blanks, or some short question will also include the content here. Then so first of all, we want you to be a rational consumer. So you have to be, when you spend money, you know what you are buying. It is your needs or is your want. For needs, it is vital. It may be like to support your daily necessity. It is a part of your daily necessity. And but for want, then it will actually improve your quality of life. It's just not a must, but it will make you maybe happier. Okay, so how seller boosts their sales? They will buy advertisement, non-price competition, or cutting their prices competition. And then whether or not it is consumer is affected by seller, it is your own choice. And then so how to make a good consumption plan? First of all, you know that the shops, they will use marketing or promotion methods, so pay attention to whether or not they genuine. So the content may not be like applied applicable to everyone, and also they will offer discount or free trials for customer to attract customer. But you have to pay attention for prepayment consumption. Means, let's say let's say you go to a gym, then you ask you to pay the membership for an entire year, but you have to really assess whether or not it is your needs. You will really use the gym that much for the entire year. And then you have to compare similar goods and services, compare its price, quality, and performance, and aware of product safety. And then how you spend your money. And then in economics, the major usage of our money will be consumption and saving. These two will be the major way for us to spend our money. And then in your different life stage, the proportion of money that you spend on consumption or saving or donation or investment will be maybe quite different. But you need to live within your budget. And then where your money come from will be your income, saving, or your borrowed money. This is just quite straightforward. But for a consumer, yes, you should collect relevant information and compare similar products, and to see whether it is really necessary. And then do not harm the environment, and buy materials that can be recycled, repaired, upgraded. So here, this is key points here, is that we have a term called, we have some jargon here: private costs, external costs, and social costs. So for all the costs, it refers to harmful effect. Private costs refer to harmful effect on your own, it is the decision maker's own cost. Let's say you smoke cigarettes, so what is your private cost will be the harmful effect on your health. It is your own cost. But if you have some effect on others, external cost, we will call them external costs. Let's say the second-hand smoke that other may have to suffer. So this is the external cost, is the harmful effect on others. So and then private costs and external costs combined will equals to social costs. So external costs may not always exist, but if it exists, if it is positive, then you make your social cost greater than your private costs. But as people are selfish, we'll only pay attention to our own costs, our own private costs. We ignore the external costs on others. So here, this part is just to remind you that when you make your consumption, you have to also consider the external costs, the harmful effect on others as well. So here, the example will be when you buy pirated good, or you download good songs from the internet illegally, you will also have some harmful effect on others. Let's say those copyright owner, they cannot earn the money that they're entitled to. Okay, so this is just in part for us to introduce some economics terms. Make sure that you understand when you make consumption, you also need to consider the external costs on others. And then next section, protecting consumer, will be in Hong Kong. We have a consumer council. Then it is set up to protect consumer rights and then promote consumer education. So here, what they need to do is collect information. You may see some news reporting on the Consumer Council reviews that some product is actually has contained some chemical. It exceeds the limit regulated by the government. And they can receive complaint and from the consumer and give advice, and then they can also take action. Let's say tendering advices to the government, encouraging associate as a codes of practice, undertaking other functions. So this is you just need to briefly know the duty of the Consumer Council. And then for competition policy, so in Hong Kong, some anti-competitive behavior is actually illegal. So what examples are, let's say if a few big sellers, they fix the market price, and then this is actually illegal. And also they may fix quota. Controlling the market supply is also be illegal, or it boycott some small seller. Let's say they a few big seller, they join they form a union, and then force those supplier, not allow them to supply those goods to other small seller. Those will also be illegal. And then you may have some unfair standard, not allowing other newcomers to join the market. So here this part may be quite a little bit vague, so I will share with you. Let's say if it is still here. Yeah, okay, it's already not here. So if you're interested, you may search online for 759, the history of 759. Then you will know that it's originally a very small shops when they want to sell Coca-Cola at a lower price, but in turn they are threatened by the supplier, saying that if you continue to sell those Coca-Cola at that low price, then we will no longer supply Coca-Cola for you, because that small shop selling at such a low price is actually making other big retailer, big supermarket lose their profit, because they cannot sell their product at their original price. So this is actually anti-competitive behavior. Is actually now regulated in Hong Kong. And the very last part is private property right. So this is important economic concept. So when we say that, when you let's say you are using your e-device to watch this video, so I suppose you own that e-device. When we say that you own that device, what does it mean? What rights do you have? So first of all, when you own that device, you have the right to use that device, and also you can exclude other from using it. Let's say you have 30 students in your class, you can allow 29 of them to use it. You can exclude one classmate that you don't allow him from using your e-device. Then this is actually your right when you really own that good. Second is that you can receive income generated from the use of the good. Let's say you can rent your e-device to others, and then you can receive money. So this is also your right. And the very last one will be to transfer. You can just sell it, or you can just give it to someone else if that device belongs to you. So what does it mean? It means that for others' property, you do not have that right. So let's say you cannot sell my iPad because you don't own it, so you do not have the right to transfer my iPad. So these are the free private property rights. When you own one good, then you should have the free rights of this good. And then why is it important? If without private property right, then that good or that resources will become common property. What does it mean by common property? Let's say for those fishermen, when they catch the fish from the sea, they never have a thought that we need to pay for the fish. Why is that? It's because the private property right of those fish is not clearly defined. So that's why no one will be willing to pay. No one will pay for it. Then you just grab it. Who can catch them? Then that fish will become yours. Then you cannot have a market exchange. No one will buy for it, and you won't have a market price for it. Then for our market mechanism, for a buyer, for a seller, for exchange to happen, you must be able to clearly define private property right, and then people will be willing to able to pay for a market price. 咁啊呢 part 咧我用廣東話講一講，即係例如係可能。例如係我哋去街市買魚，咁你買魚嘅時候咧，你就知你要俾錢啦。咁其實你俾錢嘅時候，你買緊啲咩咧？你就係買緊我而家買咗條魚之後咧，你就係買緊你有嗰個魚嘅嗰3個 right，你有 exclusive right 去用個魚啦，你有 exclusive right 去例如租條魚出去，唔知去做表演咁樣，又或者咧你有去即係送條魚出去嘅權利。呢個就係你買魚嘅過程，你俾錢咧去真係得到嘅權利。咁我哋就係咧要喺你即係例如你係俾錢嘅時候，你俾完嗰70蚊買條魚，你要 make sure 到你係有嗰3個 right 咧，你先會願意去俾錢。例如係你用70蚊去買咗，點知咧隔離嗰個人可以就咁搶你條魚去用嘅，或者就咁咧將你條魚送俾人哋嘅，咁你就會覺得咁我攞70蚊買咗啲咩咧？所以咧一樣嘢嘅 private property right 要 clearly define， 你先願意去俾70蚊，你先知你有個70蚊，你先願意去俾錢去買嗰一樣嘢，咁你先知道買完嗰樣嘢之後咧，你又擁有嗰樣嘢嘅嗰啲權利，咁你先願意去俾錢嘅。咁所以例如係話海入面嗰啲魚，海入面嗰啲魚咧就係冇，就係佢就係冇話講清楚究竟佢啲 private property right 係屬於邊個，即係公海入面嘅魚，究竟佢係邊個嘅咧？冇，咁佢就變咗一個 common property 啦。咁啲魚，即係你會唔會俾錢去買？即係你捉完條魚上嚟，你有冇話諗住要俾錢俾邊個咧？冇嘅喎，係咁。如果係冇一個 private property well defined 嘅話咧，咁其實你就唔會願意去俾錢咧去買海入面嘅魚，但係你會願意俾錢咧去買呢個嘅魚檔入面嘅魚，係因為魚檔入面嘅魚咧嘅 private property right 係 well defined， 好清楚咧，佢係 define 咗係本身係個魚檔嘅老闆嘅。咁而家你就去用錢去同魚檔嘅老闆交換你嗰啲 private property right。咁但係公海入面嘅魚，因為佢係 common property， 咁所以就唔會有人去俾錢去買，你就靠搶就得㗎啦，咁樣樣。咁咧呢 part 咧成 part 都係即係都係要即係其實背就好難背晒咁多㗎啦，即係其他嗰啲 content 咧就你要睇一睇啦嚇，大概知道係啲咩啦咁樣樣。咁啊，但係即係邊一 part 要重點溫嘅咧，就係 private property right 要重點溫啦，仲有呢個嘅social cost、private cost 同埋 external cost 都係比較要重點溫嘅，係啦咁其他嗰啲咧就起碼睇一次，你大概知道係啲乜嘢嚇，咁啊都會考㗎嚇，有可能會考嘅，咁只不過係即係除非你成份背得晒啦嚇，咁你成份背晒我都支持你嘅。咁啊，我 go through 少少過往呢個 topic 其實係即係考過啲咩咧嗱，今年可能會考另外一啲嘢，不過即係俾你睇下大概以前係點考先。首先就係有一年出咗有2年係出咗 fill in the blanks 啦，有一年係出咗short question 嘅。So fill in the blanks 咧就responsible consumer should choose products do not harm the living environment 啦，即係呢個就叫做你前面嗰啲嘢要睇咯，係啊，即係你大概知道話佢講過啲咩咁樣啦。It should not consider private costs but also the external costs that may affect others 咯，係啦。咁啊 priority already right 咧就include 咗 right to receive 啦 ，right to transfer 同埋the right to use 咁樣咯，係啦，咁你就要背嘅嗰幾個 right， 係啦，咁啊 people living in a public housing flat do not have a full priority right of the flat. Explain why it is correct。咁就係咁雖然佢有個 right to use 啦，exclusive right to use 啦，但係咧佢冇嘅就係佢冇 exclusive right to receive income generated by the use of the property 啦，即係佢唔可以租佢出去啦。同埋佢都冇個 right to transfer， 佢唔可以賣咗層樓嘅咁樣樣，係啦，咁所以就你睇翻嗰啲 past paper 你就會知其實private property right 同埋social cost、private cost、external social cost、private cost、external cost 會係比較重點考嘅咯。咁啊，其他個 part 你就大概要知道啦嚇。咁啊嗰個 anti-competitive behaviour 同埋嗰個 consumer council 都係要溫嘅。咁咧。大概就係嚟到呢度啦，再見啦大家。